few years ago, I came across a pile of free books at Graham Church, and I decided to look through them, see if there was anything I was interested in. And I noticed that there was a book by John MacArthur called Giving God's Way. And I like John MacArthur, so I opened it up, and on the inside cover there was a stamp that said from the library of Michael C. Hixson. And I like Michael C. Hixson. So I started thumbing through it, get a feel for the book, and noticed that there was coffee staining like everywhere in this book. And then it occurred to me, Pastor Johnny must have read this book as well. And I like Pastor Johnny. I had to read the book. So I took it home and honestly was not expecting to be challenged. Financial stewardship was not something that I thought I had a problem with. Rachel and I had no debt other than our mortgage. We were regular in our giving to God's work. We had plenty of savings. Didn't think we had a problem. But it was a great book. Turned out to be a great, challenging, very good book. And I wanted to share a few things from the book with you. MacArthur said in Giving God's Way, when we talk about money, we're talking about life, in a sense, because money is so central to our everyday living. Money itself is amoral. That is, it is not good or evil, but it can be used for good or evil. Money corrupts, some say. And it's true that some rich, no matter how much they have, always want more. But aren't there greedy poor people as well? It's not money that is the real problem, but people's attitude toward it. MacArthur went on to say, you always hear people say, well, if I had $1 million, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. The question isn't what you would do if you had $1 million, but what are you doing with the $10 in your pocket? You might think that if your ship came in, you would support a missionary or whatever. But what are you doing with the $10 you have, or the dollar? Ecclesiastes 5, 10, and 11 warns, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money. When good things increase, those who consume increase. Jesus said, he who is faithful with a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. Luke 16:10. It's not a question of having more and doing more with it. It's just a question of what you're doing with what you have. Later in the book, MacArthur wrote, one of the most dangerous things about the love of money is that we begin to trust in it. We say, hey, everything's great in my life. I've got my bank account built up. I can take care of myself. I've got money for a rainy day. Are you trusting in your God or in your gold? Proverbs 11:28 says, he who trusts in his riches will fall. This really hit home with me. I was always pretty particular about making sure that we had a certain amount of money in the bank. Enough money that if a couple of unexpected expenses came up, we'd be fine. Wouldn't have to worry about it. We were comfortable with that amount of money. And I started wondering, after reading this book, really where I was placing my trust. Was I trusting in my God or in my gold? And it was actually just a few years after that, in 2010, when Graham started our current Building Fund Stewardship Challenge, the theme of which is trusting God on the boundaries of faith. Rachel and I prayed about it. We discussed it a lot. And we made the decision to give more money than we were comfortable giving. By the end of 2010, that first year of the challenge, of the Building Fund program, we were down to almost nothing in our savings. And no matter how hard I tried, as I saw that number going down, no matter how hard I tried, I was very nervous about it, very uncomfortable about it. And right at the end of 2010, we actually, for the first time in our 11-year marriage then, we had to borrow money from my parents. And that was humbling. But we were fearful that we wouldn't be able to pay our bills. So we actually didn't end up needing the money, but it was super close. And in early 2011, I had an opportunity to interview for a promotion at work. And I felt decent about my chances. Went into the interview feeling pretty good, thinking it'd be pretty good, and I absolutely tanked. It was horrible, embarrassing, bad. There was at least one or two questions where I said, I don't know. Yeah, it was not a shining moment in my life, which made it even more apparent that God was at work, that it was only by God's grace that I actually got the job. And I think it's also important to note that the amount of my raise, when I was notified of my annual raise, it was almost exactly twice what Rachel and I had pledged annually to give to the building fund. Francis Chan, in his book Crazy Love, said this: God doesn't call us to be comfortable. He calls us to trust Him so completely that we are unafraid to put ourselves in situations where we will be in trouble if He doesn't come through.